Welcome to MC Podcast, episode 10. In studio today, we have Kevin Koone, CEO, and also mini hat wearer around here. In fact, this morning you had a different hat on because you were hunting turkeys this morning.
That's right, and we had to clarify for some folks in the office that mini hats didn't necessarily mean wasn't small hats, but multiple hats.
Multiple hats. That's exactly right.
Yes. So as CEO and director of R&D. I get pulled into all kinds of projects.
Absolutely. So, being the director of R&D, you kind of help coordinate all of the nursery planning and make sure that everybody's getting in and plot planting and make sure that Kyle's getting all the plot seed at, and so you're really directing all of that from a management side. So, the question now is, how are you managing all of the antsiness to get everything planted?
You know, this is a frustrating point in the season for us because last fall we started shelling stuff coming out of the nursery and already beginning to make plans to what was going to go in the ground this spring, and we had a relatively dry, mild winter. March was really nice. In fact, we had some guys locally that planted some hybrid seed corn around us in March. Soil conditions were good. If anything, we were a little concerned it was going to be too dry. Then when we roll into mid-April, as we start to hit our ideal planting window, all of a sudden here comes the rain, and we even have had some cool weather.
Right.
So we've got Cullen, our plant breeder. He is having a hard time sleeping at night right now. He is so antsy wanting to get in the field, but it's just absolutely too wet for us to go right now.
So actually, and to be honest, we probably could have planted a couple of days this week, but the fact that the forecast was showing several inches of rain coming, and so for us, that's planting that inbred seed, planting that seed doesn't have quite the hybrid vigor. For us, that's a risk.
Absolutely. So we've had, I talked to some cooperators in the last week here locally, and I think we've had depending on the location, we've had around, before last night's big rain, we'd had about 6 inches since Easter. So 10, 12 day period, we've had 6 inches. Got another 2 inches last night. Forecast another 1.5 to 2 inches tomorrow night. So they're just kind of stacked in one right after another, and we actually we had a lot of wind, some good sunshine midweek, and we had a period there where conditions would have let us go if we wanted to go, but it was just too risky to put that inbred seed in the ground. If I'd have been going out to plant hybrid seed corn, with a really good seed treatment on it, a Cruiser Max 250 product, I probably would have been comfortable going. But when we're talking about inbreds, they just don't have the vigor of hybrid seed corn, so it wasn't worth the risk of getting that crop off to a slow start.
So for us, you're right. It's not worth the risk. Even if we have to wait a week, right? It's worth the risk to wait a week to get a little bit later on. What about for that regular farmer? How much risk is he taking putting seed in? And like I said, you said we've got 1.5 inches coming tomorrow night, but actually if you look until the next 3 or 4 days, we've got 4 inches forecasted.
Right.
So at what point does it make sense for him to say, okay, I'm going to hold off even if it takes me a week or 10 days? At what point is that risk worth it?
This is the time of the year where the farmer really feels like a gambler. The start of your corn crop is so critical because prior to that V4 stage is when all that growth and that yield potential is being determined, and any stresses that you incur in that early period really damage your yield potential, and on top of that, you can run into some quality effects that you can't see in your feed stuff in the long run. So the decisions on that you're making early are probably as critical as any you make throughout the growing season. And, the push is every year is we got to get earlier. We got to be out earlier. And, while, there is a lot of data, especially if we look at grain yield data that will back that up, early planted corn will out yield late planted corn. But there are so many risks that come with some of that early stuff, that oftentimes, especially when we're talking about corn silage, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a number of times where the last corn silage planted in a lot of these regions turns out being the best yield and the best quality product.
Yes. I'm right there with you. One of the things that I would always recommend to a guy is, okay, so maybe he's going to plant something 112 day. There's no problem if you can't get in for a couple of weeks. There's no problem backing that down to 107 or 108 day kind of hybrid.
Sure, and the other thing that you look at there too, especially if we're talking corn silage, and you and Kyle have seen what happens in the fall when we start harvesting plots. There is not much difference in harvest time on
Right.
a lot of these products. When we're taking out these big plots, we could have material anywhere from 85 to maybe up to 117 days in some locations. And we always get an early wave of stuff that's ready to come out, and then it seems like inevitably,
But
everything turns within
2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can harvest the 80, 85 day stuff, and then 2 weeks later, you're at almost proper moisture for the 117 day stuff. Sometimes it's not even, 3 weeks.
Right. So I don't see a huge span in harvest time when we're looking at differences in relative maturity. So don't get too scared off of what you're currently planning to use. But yeah, and you have the option of going shorter because the way the genetics are now, you don't give up that much yield by going back 2, 3, maybe even 5 days.
Maybe in 5 days. And so I guess that was one of the questions that I was going to have. A lot of guys, it seems to me, are making, I don't want to necessarily say irrational, but maybe ill-informed decisions about relative maturity. If I plant 112 day, in fact I know that last year in northern Wisconsin there was a guy who planted 113 day. He was kind of doing a little experiment, but wanted to see if it would even get to black layer. Right. And fortunately last year it did, and it turned out okay. Not something that we'd recommend every year, but sometimes it seems to me a guy's like, well, if I don't get my 112 day or my 115 day or depending on where they're at my 105 day, I'm not going to make as good or as much corn silage as I can. But that's just not the case.
Absolutely. And, and the thing to remember, and what I stress to guys, when we're talking about relative maturity, that is a relative maturity, so
Right.
It's not an exact science on how that corn's going to finish up in the fall. There's a lot of variability depending on conditions, how much moisture you get, leaf disease, what's the health package like on that corn hybrid, so I see guys get really hung up on not what a relative maturity number is. It's important, you want to be in the range for your
Right.
Your region, but it's important that we don't get so hung up on that we miss some opportunities.
Because it's really about heat units. How many heat units that corn really gets,
Right.
And you got an 85 day corn in a northern part of the United States or even into Canada. It's going to take 85 days to get that number of heat units. Whereas if I pull that 85 day corn down to southern Illinois, it actually takes fewer days to get that number of heat units. And then those heat units, when they come, they can really stack up pretty fast.
Sure, and we never know what kind of summer we're going to have. Are we going to have a hot, dry summer, or is this going to be one of those years where it's overcast and cool most of the time?
Right.
So all those factors really play into how that hybrid's going to perform. There again, here the farmer, he's kind of a gambler. He's making decisions. So you kind of gotta sit down and make a game plan before we get to this point in the year and decide, how am I going to manage my acres? And for the most part, you kind of stick to your guns.
Right. We're talking about ill-informed decisions, and it kind of sparked a thought in my mind here, right? One of the other things that I see guys making ill-informed decisions about is cob color, and I want to jump off on that for a second. I mean, but really, as a nutritionist or as looking at things in a nutritional avenue, basically, I don't see any difference between a white cob and a pink cob and a red cob nutritionally. Nor do I see that with those genetics bringing different starch characteristics in corn hybrids. And from a genetic side, Kevin, you can maybe explain that out a little bit for us?
Yeah, so when you're talking about just looking at from a genetic side, when you're looking at cob color, so basically, white cobs are recessive. So that's a somewhat of a recessive trait. So if we take a white cob and we put any kind of a red cob on it, so if I take a white cob female inbred and I take a red or a pink cobbed male and cross it, the seed that the farmer is going to wind up with in the field, it's going to be some variation of red. So
Okay.
that white always gets diluted.
Right.
So in order for us to produce a hybrid that is a true white cob variety, we have to cross two white cob inbreds to create that parent.
Okay. And are there any, you know, do you see any genetic propensities? Maybe that's the word, genetic propensities with white cob inbreds. I mean, are they throwing any better or any worse?
So what I see, and there are different avenues we can go down with this. We can talk nutritionally and
Right.
agronomically as well. When we look at agronomics, and I'll kind of start there first. There is a mindset, especially in the world of a row crop grain, that you give up some manageability, some harvestability with a white cob. And that is because if you go way back several years, you look at some of those early white cob varieties that came out. They didn't dry out. They held their moisture longer. They had a tendency to basically to disintegrate when they go through the combine.
Okay.
So they didn't handle as well as red cobs did. They didn't
For
kernel
the grain
for
guy.
the grain guy. The
Okay.
kernels wouldn't break clean. And a lot of guys still kind of have that mentality that, okay, white cobs are for silage or for, if I'm going to leave the cobs in, red cobs are for combining. That is absolutely not the case with modern genetics. In fact, some of the so if you look at our lineup, or even if you look at other lineups in the industry, some of the best genetics out there are white cobs, and there are some great red ones. So from an agronomic standpoint, don't make your decisions based on what cob color is. From an agronomic standpoint, from what I've seen.
And I'll take that a step further from a nutrition side. There's no reason to also. We look at several hybrid crosses every year, probably a couple hundred, and nowhere do I ever see I see white cobs that do not perform well, and I see red cobs that perform great. The thing that I do see still is a little bit of a palatability issue. Mm-hmm. A lot of times with a white cob, there may be just a little less sorting out of those cobs, but you get a good chopper with a good kernel processor, and really really you don't find that when things have been chopped well and processed at the right moisture and done well. And I've even taken some really dark red cobs, some pink cobs, and some white cobs, run them through forage analysis, and there is really no difference there between those nutritionally whatsoever.
Right.
But I know that's one of those things that some guys they have this kind of ill-informed thing, or maybe it was their experience. I had a better experience with this white cob hybrid than I did this red cob hybrid, and that's kind of formed their opinion.
Right. I think a lot of growers are making decisions on what you talked about before with sorting in the bunk, where we see big cob pieces in there, and that's pretty common that you see that cows don't sort the white cobs as much as they do the red ones.
Right.
But like you say, a kernel processor takes care of that easily, and just because we see the sorting doesn't always mean it's tied to a difference in digestibility.
Exactly, and nutrient value. So
Right.
there really is no difference there. So last episode we talked with Scott and Toby, and we really talked about what a farmer should expect from their seedsman. Well, and I think this is one of those places where a grower should not really get so focused on, I got to have the white cob, or I got to have this. He should really listen to a seedsman and say, look, we've seen this hybrid, no matter what the cob color is, we've seen it perform well nutritionally, agronomically, yield wise in your location on this kind of field that you've got, and really, really pay attention to that, and not try to get so hung up on some of those things that are really just based on experience and opinion. So, so we talked that you wear different hats at Master's Choice, and so you do wear that director of R&D, but you also wear the CEO hat, where you gotta kind of rally the troops and all of those things. Earlier, you did a vlog on our YouTube channel and you made some mentions about teamwork around here. Talk to us a little bit, kind of about the way that team works here. I mean, and maybe that's one of those catchphrases we hear a lot in business, but just talk about, as a CEO and a director of the whole business, how you like to see teamwork work.
Sure. And, first off, I'll just say from when we're talking about Master's Choice specifically, it's an incredible work environment. The Crabtree family has done a great job of building a business that's centered around Christ first.
Yep.
And they have put together a team of excellent people that are a lot of fun to work with, and that makes a lot of this success and a lot of this teamwork really easy, because we have great people here, and the focus is where it should be. And when we look at the team here, look at the Anna office, for lack of better words, we function as a family.
Yeah.
We start every morning gathered around the table in the conference room and do a morning devotional every day. So everybody's able to interact, and that kind of a setting really allows us to function well as a team. So you get members of sales and marketing, members of R&D, members of accounting.
Do we really want accounting in there, though? I mean, are we? So Lynn had told me when I was first hired, he made a statement. He said, you don't have to be a Christian to work here, but some days it makes it uncomfortable. And we know that accounting folks don't have souls. You know what I mean? So really devotion is about converting them, correct?
Well, I don't know if I would say it's about converting them, but we definitely have some varying personalities in the family. We'll say that. But it's really easy for all those departments to kind of fit and function together when we're sitting under the same roof.
Yeah.
And it's planning time, and when things dry out, you can bet planners are going to be running in multiple directions. There are going to be members of sales and marketing going to be stepping in to help. So whoever's available is going to step in and help. And we have a team of folks that's always ready to step up and help and do whatever is needed. And where teamwork really I guess gets more difficult, and where we kind of have to take things to another level is where we start to talk about off-site employees, right. And we start to talk about dealer distributor networks that are around the country, because we all have to function together. We've got Michael Lake is up in Central Illinois managing an R&D facility up there. We just had Kyle up there helping him get a nursery planted. So we do have one nursery in the ground.
Yes.
So the smallest of the nurseries is in, but you really have to be deliberate in your organization and your communication with offsite employees to kind of keep that. It's hard to maintain that family feel when you don't sit in the same room with someone every day. But I think we've done a good job of keeping communication lines open. And the folks that are working outside of this office, whether it be the staff down at Pulaski at the conditioning facility, Michael up in Central Illinois, the marketing guys up in St. Louis, everybody understands that we're all on the same team and that we're all working together for the good of the whole.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that a lot of that has to do with the culture that we build and being intentional as that central family unit, or however we want to talk about that, being intentional to reach those guys out there. But also, it's not just about ongoing communication. There's an intentionality about who we hire and and why. I mean, I think there's a lot of times that we'll hire. We see somebody who maybe doesn't fit, and we have to say, okay, it's going to be hard to bring you into the fold, so to speak. Whereas maybe we look for those people who are going to be able to just kind of help be part of that family, and the bigger we grow, the more difficult that's going to get.
Yeah, and so we see a lot of people that get really hung up on qualifications. So what college degrees do I have? What kind of work experience do I have? And there are certain positions where you have to have some education to come in and step in and do the job. But for me as CEO, when I'm setting in and interviewing people and looking at people to fill positions, we are really looking for people that fit the mold, people that fit the team, and people that are going to step in and be team players. You're looking for people that are hardworking,
Yep.
And are not afraid to have to step out of, hey, this is my task, these are my responsibilities. They're not afraid to step over here and help another department.
Right.
So finding people that have that personality, that have that work ethic, and that's the thing here at Master's Choice. We have a team of people that, it's fun to manage a group when you don't have to watch over their shoulder all the time.
Yeah.
It makes my job really easy. I'm able to focus on proactive things out in front because I know that the people that we have in place, they're going to show up and they're going to just absolutely do everything they can to knock it out of the park every day and come in and work hard. And those are the kind of people that we're looking for. And I know we've got Alex coming in here as a guest.
Yes.
And Alex can give us a lot of insight in that too. And Alex kind of serves as a part of our GM team as well. And Alex will have a lot of good insight kind of on hiring and how we find people that fit the mold here for Master's Choice.
And so I would say, we've been really blessed and to be able to find those people that do fit, and maybe don't have the pedigree, so to speak, with all the letters behind their names, but they're hardworking, they get the job done, they see the vision and the goal of Master's Choice, and they're willing to come in, be part of the family, roll up their sleeves, and really that's the kind of people that we want to hire and that I want to work with when we do that. So you're right. Alex is going to be our guest in the studio today, and you and him are just going to kind of talk about, as Master's Choice is a growing business, maybe some pluses, some minuses, some pros, some cons, some difficulties, some challenges, but some opportunities, and just kind of give some advice for maybe somebody who is got a growing business.
Sure.
Joining us in the studio now is Alex Foeller. Alex, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be back, Mark.
Hey, I appreciate you bringing a little class to the joint.
I missed it so much. Last time was so fun. I wanted to come back. So
hey, that's what we do here. We're just party people. In fact, Kevin and I, that's really kind of what we've been talking about is the teamwork aspect here and the team feeling and the family feeling that we have here. And we were talking a little bit about hiring practices. And not really necessarily looking for the guy who's got the pedigree behind their name, but a guy who's going to come in and work hard and do those kind of things. So, Alex, give us another little introduction about what you do here, and then I want you to kind of talk about when you got hired here, kind of the way that all kind of worked.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we do have a different approach to it here at Master's Choice. I think that's one of the things that separates us from most of the other companies out there. So mine's a good example of kind of I don't want to call it a standard necessarily, but it's just kind of typical.
Yeah.
I was actually brought on as a part-time intern when I was in college in 2012, and then that
back when you were a wee lad.
Back when I was much younger, relative, I guess. But so my first job was actually just data entry in the accounting office.
Okay.
And so. I didn't know it at the time, but what Lynn and Paul were using that for was just kind of an analysis of work ethic and skill and separating, do we put faith in a degree or do you put faith in the person?
Right.
And he kind of told me at the end of the summer that's what he was doing and offered me a full-time job at that time. So it was a different approach. We actually try to see people in the working environment more than just trying to focus on an interview or credentials or references. All of those things are really important, but they're not supremely important because
Right.
ultimately they're not going to impact how they operate day to day, how they interact with the current staff, and what skills they bring to the table. You really can't be told everything you need to know from an interview and from a resume.
Okay.
And so that kind of does distinguish Master's Choice in that we focus on I don't want to call them necessarily real world skills because you can glean a little bit, but like you said before, the team aspect is also really important, how they interact.
How they interact and how they're going to fit with us. So you started off data entry, and now your title is
Ever changing.
ever
I mean,
changing.
It is currently director of finance, so
Okay.
so I oversee the accounting office and then also work with the departments on their budget planning now.
Alex is the one that denies our budget request when we
Denied.
want to buy new toys.
Yeah.
Professional sayer of the word no.
Yeah, I've experienced that a time or two.
Sorry.
Yeah, well,
Nothing
I mean,
personal.
yeah, well, so sometimes I think it is.
Depends on what it is.
You know, okay, I'm just gonna let you know. I'm just being honest with you
Okay,
here.
I'm
from,
sorry.
from everybody.
We can talk about this out of studio.
Out of studio.
We'll reconcile.
Can we do it over lunch, like wings?
If you're paying for it, yes.
Dang, that's what I thought. See, there it is again. No, denied.
I need a stamp.
So you were brought in data entry. You're in charge of financing. So director of financing, all of those things. And really, I will be honest about this. You know, as much as we make fun of people from accounting and financing and that they don't have souls and they probably won't live long lives, but all of those things. You know, really working with you, and there are very few of those times. You recognize that when somebody comes in and says, I have a need for this, and this is where I'd like to take my department, you really sit down and you listen and you think through that, and you really fit in well with that team aspect. So let's kind of bring this around to this point. Okay, we here at Master's Choice have this really great, unique position with our employees and our team. So what about on a farm? You know, how does this translate into a guy who's out there and maybe he's added cows, maybe he's added acres, and he says, "Man, now I've got to hire somebody. How do I need to do this? What kind of things do you think he needs to be looking for?"
There is probably enough material in what you just talked about to cover about 8 hours of discussion, but generally what you're looking for is somebody who aligns with what you're aiming to do.
Okay.
So that's kind of a mission statement thing, which again is its own topic. But
Right.
you know, who is somebody that you would have confidence in to say, I trust you, that we're headed in the same direction. We believe the same things about, you know, what our operation is supposed to look like at its core.
Okay.
Things we will spend money on or things we won't. Things we'll compromise on, things we won't. And you can learn a little bit about that from an interview, but it doesn't hurt to know the person first.
Yeah.
So don't shy away from necessarily hiring people that you know, but also kind of broaden your perspective a little bit and talk to somebody you don't know in the hiring process. To sum it up in a few sentences, you want somebody who's going to challenge you, but also be a teammate with you, because you don't want to hire yourself. You
Okay.
may want to hire yourself.
I mean, you know, we talk about this quite often around here. I feel sorry for people who aren't me.
I've heard this before.
You know, and so, you know, working with other people like me would be wonderful.
I can tell you from experience, you know, when we start hiring people into R&D, you know, you only go back a few years, and largely I touched everything that happened in R&D from an agronomic standpoint and genetic standpoint, and we are quickly to a point now where we have hired people that are far more qualified for that position than I am. You know, there are a lot of tasks that I can't help them with anymore. They are, you know, and that's the way it should always be. You know,
Good point.
the people that you're hiring should always be raising the bar on their talent, on their work ethic. You know, and you know, you should always be raising the bar, I guess, kind of on where the standard's at.
Is that kind of why we haven't hired a nutrition research associate, because we haven't found that person who could raise the bar and really be better than me?
Had you not talked to him about this yet?
I don't think that's a related topic.
Okay, I was wondering. I'm just asking the question.
We have a lot to talk about when we're done here.
But you guys are right. So a guy on a farm, he shouldn't shy away. And here's another thing that I think that's interesting. We have a fairly young staff here. I'm sitting at the table here. I got the most gray in my beard, and some people around here can't even grow beards.
That was mean.
But the fact of the matter is, we actually have a fairly young staff, and I think that's probably an anomaly in a lot of places. But really finding that, even if they're young, finding that person who's really going to fit is very important. Yeah. What are y'all's experience with the youth of this company?
Am I a member of this?
Well, you can talk about it on one side or the other.
I'm biased, so generally speaking, I mean, if we're talking about hiring on the farm, you're going to run into this eventually, and you're going to hear about 1,000 times a day the uniqueness between generations. So, right now, the generation that everybody's talking about with regard to joining the workforce is millennials. So millennials are born, I think it's like 1984 through 96 or 7 or something.
That's after I was born.
Yeah, man. There's a 14-year window there where, these people are just now some of them are just starting to graduate college and join the workforce. The uniqueness is probably not as important as how you play strengths and weaknesses. And it's kind of what Kevin alluded to before, which was you don't want to hire somebody that has your exact same strengths, because then you're still exposed to weakness on your operation.
That's a great point.
You need somebody who's going to challenge you and know things that you don't know. Mm-hmm. You need to hire to fill the weaknesses that you have, and we all have those. One of the best things you can do for yourself, and we can all apply this, is to know what those weaknesses are so you can address them.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
And so one of the impacts with a younger generation is that they have perspectives on technology. They have perspectives on modern economies from their education that may be useful.
Yeah.
They may have some that are not useful at all.
Right.
But to the average guy out there who's trying to find somebody who is reliable and who understands new technology or new trends, millennials can be helpful for that. Younger people can be.
Yeah.
And I think we found that here at Master's Choice, too.
You're exactly right, because there's days that I have to help me with my email.
Yeah, and things in agriculture are changing very rapidly. We're seeing more and more modern technology coming into the farm. So bringing in some of those younger employees, a lot of times can bring new life to the farm, and create new opportunities.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. The pace of agriculture changing is really pretty fast. New technology, from the way we plant to the way that we harvest to what's on the seed treatment to why we need to do this, just new practices is really unbelievable. And sometimes. You spoke from the spec. I don't know.
Spake is actually is a word.
Is it really?
Yeah. You can say spake.
I spake, and then so you spoke from the young position. I'll speak from the older position there. That there are a lot of times we get stuck in a rut, and we go, well, this is the way we got to get it done, and this is the way I've always done it, and somebody with a fresh perspective can be so more enlightening at times if we'll let them, and we absolutely should let that person bring that fresh perspective that can be very helpful and very productive.
One of the things that we do here is we very rarely hire people from seed corn professions.
Right.
When you look at the staff that is here, most folks came in with limited experience in seed corn and dairy farm knowledge, that type of stuff. Most of it has been learned on the job.
Right.
And experience in specific tasks is not always necessary. It's more about finding the right person and the right fit.
The right person to fit, because there's a lot of things that guys would coming from a livestock background, but not necessarily a dairy nutrition background. There are a lot of questions I could say. Well, why don't we do this? And and some of those older guys are like, well, I don't know. I never thought about that. Why can't we make corn look like this? I don't know. We just never have. We always thought that corn was yellow. Who cares if it's yellow? What if purple corn feeds better? I don't know that it does. I'm just
don't give away our secrets.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I feel like you're trying to spend money right now. It's just I have this feeling in my head.
Maybe I am. But really, I think it's about finding that guy who really fits, and that we can really work together with to accomplish a goal. I think that communicating that goal is very important, and finding somebody who can play off on that for sure.
And circling back to the hiring practices, you touched on a really important part there too, which is that you have to make sure when you do hire somebody on your farm that expectations are made clear up front.
Very, very good.
We have, I don't think there's any harm in admitting that we've all made really good decisions, we made really bad decisions. Hiring works the same way. You're just not going to have 100% success, and a lot of the failure is going to come from not making things clear up front.
Could be
Expectations for what people are supposed to do or how things are supposed to be run. So before you set out to hire anybody, what you need to do first is make sure, number one, that the position is needed, and number two, that you can clearly and effectively communicate to somebody why they're needed and what their job is.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that necessarily. You think, oh, I need a farmhand. That's self-explanatory. Most of the time, it's not. There can be a lot of different forms that a job can take, and so have a good idea of how you might explain to somebody you hire what their job is going to be very specifically.
I think that's an absolute great point. And you're right. We're never going to bat 1,000. Mm-hmm. And you could have all of those things lined out, and then realize, go perfect interview, answer the questions right. Maybe even came in for a little while and looked like it was all going to be roses, and then you just realize this just isn't a fit. We're never going to be able to do that. Thankfully, with me, you've all indulged the quirkiness and not kicked me out yet.
Like I said, we have lots of podcast topics for another day.
The quietness was great. Yeah, I know. One of the, and Alex, you mentioned it there, that we're not going to get all these decisions right. We're going to make some mistakes in the hiring process along the way. One of the things that I have learned here, is that being able to admit when you've made a wrong decision and being able to sit down and clearly communicate that, and let's figure out either how do we fix this or let's go separate ways.
I feel like y'all are setting me up for later. I just want you to know this.
I told you we have a lot to talk about. But Kevin's absolutely right. You can, and in this way, from a business planning standpoint, you can almost look at mistakes as a driver for success because mistakes are a tool.
Very much so.
And then the R&D department here actually comes to mind with what they do with research.
Yeah.
The way they test things is basically to find failures and weed them out.
Right.
And that's how we make our we do predictions hopefully that are more successful than that, but the mistakes are just a way of going, okay, we don't have to waste resources on this anymore. We can direct them over here. And so not being afraid of failure is a pretty critical part of hiring as well. So you gotta know that you might make the wrong decision. That's okay. Okay. Just be ready to fix it.
Makes sense. Now, so all right, I want you to wrap this up, and I want you to kind of answer this question. All right. So what drives you to keep coming to Master's Choice every day? What is it that you really like about working here?
You keep taking off really big bites. That's a tough one. I mean, to sum up, is a tough one.
So I'll take the first stab at it. So there are a lot of things about coming to work at Master's Choice that I love. Legitimately every single day when I get up to come to work, I look forward to coming to work. Yeah. And there are not many places where I can work where I'm not going to wake up dreading to go to work. Yeah. The people that are here are far superior to any place that I could imagine, and the environment here is far superior than I could ever imagine. So from a personal standpoint, it's just a lot of fun. Yeah. We have a lot of fun here. Now, from a professional standpoint, we have an incredible opportunity here. Some of the things that are coming out of R&D, some of the things, Mark, that you're working on paired with us on the genetics side, man, we can really change modern agriculture, and we can really make an impact on the farm. And that, that passion for developing products that are really going to make an impact and really going to help people's bottom line, professionally, that really drives me.
Cool.
And I that the future for us is so bright, and we've got so many cool things coming that it kind of adds to a lot of the excitement.
Makes sense. Good. Alex?
Similar.
Okay.
Different, but similar. So if I had to sum it up, I would say that our ability to not only maintain some progress in agriculture, but to accelerate it and to make it better every day is a reality for us at Master's Choice. And I think it can actually be applied to a lot of different businesses as well in the agriculture industry, down to a dairy farmer or just anybody. They can sell a dream of wanting to do something unique, something that's not just we'll punch in at 6 a.m, we'll punch out at 6
Right.
at night, and you'll get your paycheck, and every once in a while we have days off. That's kind of a bummer.
That would be a bummer. Be a
And
bummer
it's
job.
not unique, and it doesn't keep people engaged. But if you have a chance to present somebody with something that's unique, something that could make a difference in the world. I don't want to use our slogan off our bags all the time, because then it gets cheesy. But really, that's what it is. That we, from the products that we sell at Master's Choice to the people that work here, our goal is, in all circumstances, are you making a difference?
Yeah.
And those are the things we pursue. If it's just maintaining, probably not.
Good. Guys, I want to thank you again for joining me today, and appreciate your honest and open comments and dialogues. And so I want to thank you guys out there listening. Appreciate you joining in. Hey, always remember us that we are on Instagram, YouTube, and you can always look us up on seedcorn.com. Thanks. Oh, hey, Facebook Live. Y'all have a good day.